afternoon. Thank you all for joining. My name is Kate, and we're going to let people trickle into this webinar today, and then we'll get started and looking at CapEx projects. I'm going to take a minute here while we are waiting. Just want to give everyone a heads up that we have a couple of questions in the poll waiting for you to answer. And as any typical webinar here at Northspire, we do offer the Q&A functionality if you do have any questions throughout the webinar, before, after. So feel free to take a minute, get settled in. We're going to allow a few more people get into the webinar, and then we'll get started. But in case we have not met yet, my name is Kate Opelko, and I am the Real Estate Transformation Consultant here at Northspire. My job is to help team members like yourself learn the software, get the best knowledge from just in general usage of the platform and how to best manage your projects. And joining me today is going to be Roger Muckenbruth. He is the head of CS. So I'm going to give him a second to say a few words as well.
Thank you, Kate. Thank you all for joining. Customer success at a software company is really all the customer-facing services, their account management, their technical services. And the most fun part of the job is announcing new stuff in the software. So if you've ever joined any of our webinars in the past, I think a lot of it is about our current product, but today we know a lot of our customers who run different kind of projects than just construction projects, and excited today to talk specifically around CapEx projects. As they're all unique characteristics.
Awesome. Well, it looks like it's 2 after, and I do see some familiar faces on the attendees list, so it's nice to see you all if we've met before. We're going to go ahead and get into the platform itself, but before, as we always do, we talk about our support. So outside of your RETC or myself, you do have the option to reach out to the Concierge Help Desk, which is available from 8 to 8 East Central, and they answer within 5 minutes or less. So you're online looking for a quick answer and your ROTC isn't available, they're a great second hand. And if you're working late at night, burning that midnight oil, we have also 400 articles and growing on our knowledge base at northspire.com. And that is also where you can find our webinar index of all of our recorded calls, such as this one that will be available shortly. But looking into the sessions as we have this past month, we've had a few on portfolio analytics, which we'll dive a little bit into today, our complex capital management, the CapEx projects today and best case scenarios of them. And then we're looking at pursuit projects next week as well. So be sure to tune in and sign up for those if you'd like to. If you sign up, you'll also automatically get the recording sent to your email. But without further ado, Roger, I'm going to let you kick us off on how to maximize outcomes for CapEx projects.
Thank you, Kate. I think a lot of our customers, of course, use this for larger construction projects, and we have a special license available for pursuit or pre-dev projects. But for those that are managing assets and budgeting, 2 to 3% of that property's value for yearly CapEx projects, there's some special characteristics about those projects that make them challenging, and was worth, I think, sharing how you might think of Northspire as the right solution for those types of projects. And we're also going to talk here in a minute about a special licensing option for those type projects that you might have felt uncomfortable in the past buying a full pro license for. So, after you've gotten through the process, the hard part of figuring out the budget, and probably the hardest part is figuring out what the priorities are for your CapEx projects, and you're getting into the execution stage, what we think, and where places that Northspire can probably be the most useful in probably 3 different ways. One is CapEx projects, they're just faster. I think that most of our CapEx projects occur within 6 months and 2 years, nothing along the same time frame that you see for construction projects. And as a manager, it could be incredibly challenging, not just dealing with the speed of these projects, but also with the juggling act of maybe having to manage several. Your alternatives are limited. Budget management using spreadsheets is challenging, but try to manage a schedule in spreadsheets even harder so. And your alternatives on the market from Northspire are completely divorced from all of the budgets and things that you have in Northspire. Whereas with construction projects, it's important. Tight scheduling management with CapEx is probably doubly so. Another interesting characteristic of CapEx is really just selecting the right budget, getting the right budget, and maintaining the right partnerships with vendors. We see a lot of our customers maybe settle into a certain group of vendors that they reuse consistently in a certain geography without the analytics to really look across previously performed projects or particular vendor performance to know that you've selected the right team and settled on the right budget. Again, something that Northspire is very powerful in doing. I think was reading an article about the number of CapEx projects that don't meet expectations, and it's surprisingly high. So to be consistent on the outcomes for your CapEx projects, I think that the things that we talked about getting the right performance evaluation done for your vendors is really important. But I think standardization and workflow automation really is important here, given the speed and the velocity. Hard to do, if not impossible, with any kind of spreadsheet work. So we're going to talk a little bit today about how to optimize, I think, templates around budgets, reporting, and workflow automation. Fundamentally, what Kate's going to show you is a different setup for projects in Northspire than you see for construction projects. So today we're going to be talking about how to manage, you think about CapEx, that's a budget for a property. So individual CapEx projects in Northspire typically look like multiple category line items within a property, which is a project. I think we can acknowledge that maybe pro licensing in Northspire might not have been the most comfortable fit for CapEx projects. So we're releasing, this is brand new, a new license tier that gives you the full Northspire Pro license functionality, the whole thing, including draw requests and the ACR. The limiting factor is the project budget. Right now, we're settling out of box with a $2 million budget cap limit for CapEx projects, full Pro functionality. We're offering these licenses in 5 license bundles with tiered pricing. The more you buy, the cheaper they become. And so hopefully that we're aligning this better with budget expectations or restrictions that you have around CapEx. I think we might have a way to contact us here in this meeting, but if not, and you'd like to hear more about these new licensing options, please reach out to Kate or I, or of course, your real estate transformation consultant. So Kate, show us how to run this in Northspire.
Yeah, you got it. So today we're going to be doing a demo, and we're going to start, as we typically do, in our portfolio manager. Tried and true, you log in, this is the first thing you see. And this is really the 30,000 foot view of your entire project portfolio, typically for all your developments. But today we're taking a little bit of a spin on this, and we're going to actually use our portfolio groupings, which can be found on this top right corner here. And for the example, we're just going to show you guys how to create a grouping just for the buildings that are running CapEx. And so for today's example, as I'm in Chicago, we're going to look at Tower 1, 2, and the potential of adding Tower 3 into my CapEx portfolio and how I would want to manage CapEx within the buildings that I have solidified a budget for. As anything in Northspire, our dashboards are really meant to give you guys insight information on not only each individual project, but as a portfolio whole, whether you're anticipating a higher overrun maybe or higher trending on a project, whether it's projections in your cash flow or your schedule. And so we're going to dive into one of these projects today, but I want to just make a point and say that we hear a lot of commentary about CapEx being hard to manage, as you probably have spreadsheets for the budget, you have a third-party system where you manage your schedule and those tasks with those individual users. And the goal here is to show you that Northspire can be a great place to do all those things and more. And so as we learn more from you, our team members that we work directly with, we also want to provide an environment that helps you guys facilitate these projects here. And today we're going to be showing one of the scenarios of how we want to recommend to do it. So without further ado, let's go ahead and click into my first tower here, because clearly, number one, my anticipated cost is way more than my budget, and my contingency usage is also creeping up. So let's go find out what's happening, because I know for a fact that I'm using the same vendors on Tower 2, and I want to make sure that my project is efficient, it's running smoothly, my internal team and external team are running those tasks really well, and there's nothing that I can do better to make this an easier process. So I'm going to go ahead and open that right up, and we're going to head into our project dashboard, which, not like your portfolio dashboard, is just a 1,000 foot view into your information. And something that's going to be different here than what you may notice on our typical development is that we're actually going to be looking at a budget for one building and then how those different types of CapEx projects build into it. So starting at the dashboard, as you all know, this is a great place to get some key metrics to really get all the same visibility in real time, something that may not be clear on typical spreadsheet / third-party consultant softwares. Maybe the accountant knows something you don't. Everything is going to be managed here, and it's a great place to start. So Tower 1, as I mentioned, is just my demo site here, and we were awarded 1.7 to complete a multitude of CapEx projects. And, as always, we might have more projects than we have budgeted for. So we'll look at how we're going to look at those as well today. But I can also clearly see that I've committed a certain amount of money to my commitments and my base contracts and change orders. I have a balance remaining of how much I'm willing to spend more within my anticipated total budget. And I also have a clear understanding of my contingency usage against all the work complete. The one thing I also want to note that's a little bit different with CapEx that you may not be using it for your, ground up development or your major reconstructions is that there's a little bit more emphasis on tasks and milestones and our critical vendors. And so the project dashboard is going to be a great place to highlight those two things. One, because you want to make sure that the tasks we have assigned to the individuals that are working on them are happening at a good time frame. That way we don't have any overruns. We don't have any after work hours. And also that those vendors that we selected to work on these projects that may be working across my other buildings as well are trending well as well. So we want to make sure the work is complete at the right time. The last point I'm going to make on this page is that, as I mentioned earlier, we have probably a list of projects that are CapEx we want to complete at Tower 1. And it's possible that our budget may not sustain that, but we want to keep an idea of what we are proposed and what bidding looks like as we learn more about each CapEx project to see what we can fit in throughout the year and what we can maybe put off for the following year. And so these key potential costs are going to highlight some of those other areas that we want to review at the next coming session as we look at our budget. And as we typically do, we're going to head to our anticipated cost report, or the ACR for short, to learn more about the budget as it stands today and the projects we've selected. So let's go ahead and head there. So as you guys know, anticipated cost report, real-time window into the visibility and the functionality of seeing our today's costs, our forecast, and the variances that we hold. What's going to look a little different for us here for CapEx is that we might be looking at things a little bit different in the budget section. So typically we see land acquisition, hard cost, soft cost, contingency, all are great, but in CapEx world, it's going to look slightly different. We're going to have our initial top line category outlining the full tower's CapEx budget. So as you can see here, I've outlined my first high level category, Tower 1 CapEx budget, and the total that I said I was awarded was 1.7 million. This is going to give us a starting point for all the work that we're going to complete that has been approved and that has been proposed. And the way that you want to think about this is that we not only want to keep track here of each individual project that you're working on, but we also want to understand how it's fitting into our total budget. And so the use case of our ACR is going to slightly change from what we typically see in developments, but I think it's going to be a great way for us to see also how we can future project costs and have a pending change as well. For sections 2, 3, and 4 here on the left-hand side, you'll see that I have 3 projects that are CapEx that have already been approved, are in full steam ahead, and the work that I've selected here is also outlined in the approved change column here. So really, typically we see original budget really holds at approved cost for the full, expenditure. But because we are looking to understand how much we start with and what we end up with in total revised, we want to put those costs for each CapEx project under approved changes to keep track of. So pretty normal here. And as you can see here, my approved changes at the bottom grand total are going to equal 0, which means that I've essentially approved the same amount that I have budgeted for each of my projects. Now, outside of this, you may notice that number 5 here is pending. Maybe we're really getting close to getting a really good contract or bids out for this common area conference room update, but we're not quite sure what it's going to cost yet. So we have some estimates. And so not everyone typically uses pending changes in our system, but in the CapEx world, this is really going to be helpful to understanding how much more we might be willing to take out of the budget and then have a good cost idea as to what we may be left with at the end of the day. So looking at the balance remaining, we're actually going to have obviously a little over here, but we're also keeping those potential other projects in our exposures to ensure that we know what else could be on deck after we complete the existing CapEx projects. What's really helpful with this budgeting tool that you may not see in your Excel spreadsheet or maybe your other software is that this is really putting together all the pieces. Our software is able to not only look at the budgetary numbers, but for each CapEx project, you're still able to keep track of all the different budget lines, costs, and also keep track of any variances that may come about. As you look at the details, you also should remember that we are able to also track the vendors on these projects. So every vendor that we have in the system gets assigned a primary role or a budget line. And my very, creatively named office contractor here looks like they're about $12,000 in variance. So our system is clearly analyzing in real time what goals we have and how it's going to be reflected. And we're able to essentially zoom in into what may be causing an overrun or a schedule change. And so looking across the board here, it looks like a small variance or exposure may be causing us to be overboard on our budget. And looking at the task complete, it looks like it's an after-hour work. So before I look at my schedule, make sure that maybe we didn't provide something on time or maybe there were some other issues, I'm actually going to explore the vendor themselves and make sure that the vendor is doing their job effectively as well. So clicking into my creatively named office contractor, we're going to be opening the project vendor overview page. And gone are the days that you have to call up your accountant and ask them, hey, what invoice number are we at? How done are we with our contract value? What's the cost per unit? Do you know the cost per unit? Everything is here in one space. And we're able to see for each project, or in this case, for each building, how we're utilizing office contractor and how they're trending today. Between all the commitments on our projects within the building, our exposures, our invoices, we have an inside scoop as to how this vendor is performing not only in one project, but if I wanted to see across multiple towers to get more insight, I can see that as well. And a quick little review that we do also offer the option to rate vendors as you get to know them better to give other developers an inside scoop as to if they're good or not, which may be a fun way to get to know other bid management options that we have as well in the future as you explore Northspire. But it looks like in my case, office contractor is pretty good at the percentage complete. It looks like they're trending within their approved contract value. So maybe I'm going to just do one less check to understand how they are performing overall. And to do so, we have the ability to zoom out a step further and review them on a global scale, as we call it. And on the right-hand side, next to that vendor name, you're able to explore the Open Portfolio button here, which takes you to our vendor analytics page, which is recently been updated to have a really great insight on the cost overview, the performance of this vendor, and if they have a track record of having any overruns. This information is highly useful. How, you may ask? Well, not only am I able to figure out that this vendor is performing on multiple projects that I have, and this also is going to show me that this vendor is also on multiple buildings that I'm working with. And within this, I can also give a good understanding without asking other individuals on my team, maybe across the country or across the zip code, how do they typically contract? Are they usually low base contract, high change order? Do they start really low on their base contract and then blow up in their exposure to potential costs? This is going to give you a great insight scoop, not only how to continue working with a vendor and have a good way to essentially leverage the data at your fingertips, but also see their performance overall. And this is a really great way to showcase not only how, if you're using this vendor, what the typical satisfaction score is, but also taking a look at the project cost breakdown to see how we typically would understand the vendor's trending. Now, other than the fact that this vendor has some crazy exposures, I think that there might have been an issue with my team getting the schedule across. So we're actually going to head back to Tower 1 in a second, and we're going to take a look at how our scheduling tool plays an important part on making sure that your CapEx projects are on time and on track. Switching back into Tower 1 here in a separate tab, I can see that at the very top navigation bar, I also have the option of schedule. So Schedule is a great intuitive tool to track your milestones and tasks on an ongoing basis. Typically, we see this done in construction or maybe across the entire project. But what's going to be really useful here is that as you work on different CapEx projects, you are able to mark those different CapEx projects as milestones. And then you're able to assign individual tasks to your internal team members and even external vendors. This might not always be true for other external companies or different task management tools you may be using. And within Northspire, you also have the capability of running the schedule tool with your budgetary information, so you always know how to keep your project on track. What's also super useful about our tool here is that as things become in progress and are checked off, you also are able to use our document library tool to not only upload documents that would be useful for your internal team to view, but also pair them to a particular task. So for instance, if I'm pretty close to bidding, let's see, I got invitations set out, my bids are going out, bids are due. Maybe you want to see what the bids look like. Great. Well, I can actually go ahead and click this paperclip and I can choose the document that matches that information and attach it. Once I attach it, then anybody can come in the system and see my bidding options for my elevator lobby work. I'm able to then share that also if I want to externally with the vendor, or have them also see when they view it, but also make sure they can send files in as well. So your sharing and permissions here, like any other tool, allow you to not only provide context as to which tasks and milestones a vendor can see, but also how descriptive they can get with them and how much work they're able to add in the system. So you're no longer just doing a one-stop shop of your internal team. You're providing leverage and context for your outside vendors that can help you stay on track and stay within budget. So overall, though, I think what's great to note about CapEx projects in Northspire is that the visibility on these projects and the consistency is key. And so as we worked across our tower number 1 and we learned a great deal of information, when we go to set up tower 2 or 3, we not only can copy and paste our budget as it stands, but we can actually recreate the categories and use that vendor analytics data to populate what we assume these vendors are going to be spending with us. We also keep track of the projects as they are today. And I think what's really great is that it's all one place and you have the right to still utilize the full category of our pro license. So the data inbox that you guys utilize day to day, it's still going to be there for you. So you can even send out emails to your vendors and have them send information at a quicker rate. You're not losing information in your inbox. You're not having to go and spend extra time chasing phone calls and emails to understand where a project stands. And so for the consistency factor, we think that Northspire is a great new resource for CapEx as well. We really want to thank you guys for taking the time for getting a snippet and a look at CapEx with us today. We will surely be providing some more information, and we hope that if you have any CapEx projects, that you are welcome to reach out to us and learn more as to how to set up licensing and also the structure of the CapEx deals. Roger and I are available if you have any questions. I don't see anything quite yet in our Q&A, but thank you for your time today, and we look forward to working with you guys on your CapEx project soon.